So today I'm going to talk about how to negotiate without giving the price. So once I have a hot lead, I want to go to the house and check the house out and try to get the owner to sell it to me at a price I want. How do I know what price I need to buy this for? So before I ever go to the house, I go ahead and I go on Zillow. You can use MLS or different places, and you see how much similar homes go for and how much you think you're going to be able to get for the house once it's totally fixed up, and then you go there and you kind of figure out what needs to be done to it. So I already have my number in mind, like the highest that I can get for it, the most I want to pay, and go from there. So I've already done this research ahead of time. I have it in a notebook, I have it written down. Once I get there, I walk in and I ask the seller, look, so do you have a number in mind that you want to sell it for? I would say, half the time they'll give you a number right off the bat, and then you could kind of know if you're in the ballpark and how much you have to negotiate. And sometimes they won't give you a price. So one thing I'm going to say is you never ever want to give a price. Only a couple of things really usually happen when you give a price. Either you give a price that's just insulting to the seller, and they're like, all of a sudden, they're not going to trust you, and you're kind of done. Like, get out, he's trying to screw me over, this and that. So if you give a price too low, that's what's going to happen. If you give a price and they're like, okay, fine, I'm going to accept it, well, then you're like, oh, dang, did I offer them too much? Maybe they would have taken less. So there's really not a great scenario by giving someone a price. Either you're going to offend them by offering too low, or they could have sold it for less, so you kind of lost some of that money. So I always get them to give me a price. Now, if I know I want to pay $100,000 for this house, tops, and someone comes to me and they're like, look, I want $80,000 for it, or $90,000, I know I'll buy it for that price, I still never will agree with them, be like, okay, fine, I'm going to take it. If I ever agree with somebody on the first price that they offer to me, it almost always never works out, and they end up renegotiating it later, because in their mind they're thinking, well, he just agreed to it too fast to where I probably should have got more money for it. So I'll never agree to whatever they say right off the bat. Even if I know I want to pay that price and I'm fine with it, I'm always going to ask them, let me think about it, or is that the best you can do? I'm going to make them think that it's very, very close and they're getting me for all that they can get me for. Psychologically, that's going to make the deal stick almost every single time. Whether you agree with them right away, they're going to try to renegotiate later. So let's get into how I actually price these homes when people just won't give me a price. So I go into their house and I'm like, all right, what do you want for this house? If they give me a price and it's full retail, I'm like, cool, I start with that number. But if they don't have a price and they don't know what they want, we'll be like, well, let's look at other houses in your neighborhood that have sold. And I'll keep in mind, I've done research ahead of time, so I know what every house sold for. I know which addresses I want to show them and which ones that we should go by. So let's just say that their neighbor's home sold for $250,000. So now I'm going to write here $250,000. That's what they're going to agree to that they want for their house, because their neighbor's house sold for that. So what I do is I look at their neighbor's house with them, and we have pictures of it all online, and it'll just be a really nice, totally rehabbed house that sold for $250,000. There might have been 4 or 5 houses that sold that were totally remodeled. Some might have sold for $240,000, some $250,000, some $270,000, some $280,000. I kind of pick the one that's makes the most sense for me to go to them with on the safe side, and I usually pick the lowest one or second lowest one for them to comp, so I know I'm safe. After I buy it, fix it up, that price will hold. So right now I've found probably the cheapest one or second cheapest one that they can comp, and we're going to use that price. That's what they're going to get. And $250,000 is going to be the example we use for this one. So they know that they can get $250,000 once it's fixed up. And I'm like, all right, cool. Well, I'd love to get you that $250,000, but let's look at that house. That house has brand new kitchen, brand new bath, brand new flooring. Everything's brand new, right? Oh yeah, that house is beautiful. That house looks awesome. Okay, cool. Well, let's look at your house. Your house, still has a kitchen from 20 years ago. Your flooring, is not up to date, compared to this other one. Would you agree? Yes, I agree. So I get them to, instantly deduct pricing based on all these different things that the other house doesn't have. I'll usually, for the $250,000 house, I'll find a house that is either a little bit smaller, so I know their house is worth more, or maybe I'll find a bigger house and I'll say, look, their house is bigger, so their house is $250,000, your house maybe should be $230,000 because it's a little bit smaller, stuff like that. So I'll start with a lower starting price. But let's get into how I go about pricing the house. So when I first walk in, I want to do a walkthrough with the seller on their house. So I'll go room by room with them. I'll walk with them, and we'll look at the kitchen, and I'll point out, all the different things in the kitchen. I'll be like, yeah, this countertop is nice, but it's not super updated. Like, this will need to be changed. There's a hole in the ceiling here. It looks like you have a water leak. It looks like, and every single room I go into, I'm going to pick apart every little thing so they understand that I see it, and that's going to instantly make them want to ask for a little bit less when we get to the price. So I go around, and if there's doors with holes in it, if there's carpet that's messed up, if there's flooring that's ripped, it doesn't matter what it is. If there's leak, old pipes, or just stuff that needs to be changed, I'll point out every single little thing. So we'll go bedroom by bedroom, bathroom by bathroom, kitchen, hallway, basement, whatever they have. In my head, I keep in mind which rooms are in the worst condition. Like, if I see a room that like the ceiling's falling in, I love that. I'm like, all right, cool. And I keep that in the back of my head. So like later on when I want to negotiate with them on the price, I'll usually go back into the room that looks the worst or smells the worst. Sometimes some rooms just smell, and I'll do the negotiation in that room because it's hard for them to want top dollar when we're in a room that looks so bad or smells so bad or there's something really wrong with. So I'll keep that in mind. After I go through the whole house with them and I point out all these little things that need to be done, they pretty much know all this stuff as they live in this house, but they now know that I know, and I'll figure out which room is the best room to negotiate in. And usually it's going to be the one that is in the worst shape, or if they're all similar, I'll pick like the dining room or kitchen, whichever one kind of looks worse, whichever one makes more sense. And while we're in there, we're going to now bring up this point that like this house should sell for $250 once it's totally fixed up and looking nice, because that's what the neighbor's house is sold for, looking nice. I might even find some comps for homes in the area that sold for $100,000 less or cheaper that needed a lot of work, and I'll bring those up as well. But let's just use this example for now. They want $250 for the house after it's fixed. After it's fixed up, that's what it's going to be worth. Cool. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'd love to give you the $250, and let's figure out a way to get you the $250. All right? They're like, oh, that's awesome. Okay, good. So I'll be like, let's look at the repairs it needs, because obviously we're going to have to fix it up to get it to the standard of a $250,000 home. So I'll be like, look, the $250,000 home had a brand new kitchen. Your kitchen definitely needs to be remodeled. When you agree, like, look at these cabinets. Yeah, no, I agree. In my kitchen is nothing like theirs. It needs to be remodeled. All right, cool. So let's just deduct for the kitchen. It's going to cost. They're like, well, how much does it cost to do a new kitchen? They're going to ask me. I'm like, well, it can cost anywhere from, to make it to their standard, let's say $15,000 to $20-some thousand. And they're like, well, yeah, that makes sense. I believe it. I've had a price before. I know it costs that much. Can you use $15,000 on the low end? I'm like, all right, cool. Let's just use $15,000. So I'm all right. Well, you need to put $15,000 into your kitchen to bring it to that standard. Then I'm gonna go through bathroom by bathroom, and I'll be like, look, you have 2 bathrooms in your house. Each bathroom, needs to be remodeled to make it look like this other house, and they're gonna agree with me. And they're gonna say, well, how much does it cost to remodel a bathroom? And I might say, $5,000 a bathroom. They have 2 bathrooms. They both need to be remodeled. Yes, they both need to be remodeled. All right, cool. So now we're at $10,000 to remodel their bathrooms. Now keep in mind, it's going to cost me like $8,000 or $10,000 to remodel this kitchen, and it's going to cost me like $1,500 to $2,000 a bathroom. So I already have a built-in $7,000 profit here. I already have built-in another $6,000, $7,000 profit here, and throughout every single repair, I'm going to have a built-in money that I know is going to cost me. Well, if you went to retail and wanted to get all these things done, it will cost this much money. But since I do so much rehab, and everyone else that fix and flips does so much rehab, they get like special pricing, and they have like crews that do it by the day, by the hour, instead of by the job, and they can get it a lot cheaper. So I just want you to understand that. So then we're like, next, all right, paint. This other house is brand new paint. It looks perfect. They just painted it and they sold it, and that's why I got it. Your house, it has a blue color wall here, a pink one here, it has wallpaper here. It needs to be changed to look like the other one. Wouldn't you agree? Oh yeah, no, for sure, I understand. It definitely needs to be painted. All right, cool. And they're like, well, how much will it cost to paint? I'm like, well, typically when you go to a house painted, it costs $2.50 a square foot. All right, so how many square feet is your house? My house is 2,000 square feet. Okay. Well, how much do you think it will cost to paint at $2.50 a square foot? I'll make them give me the number. And they'll be like, $2 is 50 cents a square foot times the 2,000, that's $5,000. Okay, cool. So we're gonna write down $5,000 for paint. And then we're gonna go on to the next one. And by the way, I did it at $250, which is what a normal person would have to pay to paint a house. But my crews, I usually pay somewhere between $1, $1.25 a square foot to paint a house. So I have another, $2,000, $3,000 room in there. Next, flooring. Like, look, your carpets, needs to be replaced. The tile is old, broken. We need to change the flooring in your house. Like, well, how much will flooring cost? Well, typically on a house that I, install flooring in, it's about $5 a square foot. And then we'll talk about how many square feet of their home needs to be changed. Maybe it's not all 2,000. Maybe it's 1,500 of it. Maybe 500 is fine. I'll be like, look, we need to replace 1,500 square feet of your house with new flooring. So at $5 a square foot, what will that cost? And they'll use their calculator. That's $7,500. Okay, cool. Let's write down $7,500. And then basically I do the same thing and go over everything over and over and over. So then, roof. The roof, there's leaks in the ceiling. Like I see spots. When's the last time you changed your roof? Oh man, I don't know. I haven't changed my roof since I lived here. I lived here 20 years. All right, well, it's probably about time to change your roof. Wouldn't you say? Yeah, it probably is. Okay, cool. How much does a roof cost? Well, it could cost somewhere, around $10,000 for this type of house. Yeah, I did have a few people price it. I agree. It's around $10,000. All right, cool. So now we're at $10,000 for the roof. And I'll do the same thing with the HVAC, water heater, lighting, their windows, the landscaping. If they need a new deck, if they need to paint the exterior. And then I always add like a certain amount for miscellaneous, because I'll be like, look, every single time I do a job, I say it's going to cost $30,000 to do the job, and by the time I'm done, it always costs $35,000. It always costs more. No matter what I budget, and I'm pretty good at budgeting, no matter what I budget, there's always something that comes up, and you just don't know about it until you start the job. So I basically explain that always happens, and I'm like, have you ever had someone come and try to fix something for you, and they thought it was going to be this, and then all of a sudden they have to add all these other things? Considering we're doing the whole house, it's going to be a lot of things that probably could come up. And, wouldn't you agree? And they're like, yeah, I've definitely done construction stuff, and I've definitely had some stuff fixed, and every time they tell me it's going to be this, something else comes up, they'll agree with you. And so I'm like, well, I always add a certain amount of money for miscellaneous, and you could add whatever what you want. When you say, 10,000 is fair in case these things come up. You could add 5,000, you could add 2,000, you could add 20,000. It doesn't matter. I'm giving you an example of numbers. You don't have to use these exact numbers. But at the end, when I add up the HVAC, the heater, all these different things, which I already have a ton of money built in for profit, I'm going to add them all up, and we're going to be at 25, 30, 47.5, 57.5. So right here, I'm at 57,500 in repairs. And then I get them to agree with me. I'm like, do you see all this stuff needs to be done? Like, to get the $250,000 that you want, which is the high side of what it's worth, we're gonna have to do all these repairs to get it there, right? Is that true? And they're like, no, definitely. I saw the other house. It definitely needs all this stuff. That's what it's gonna cost. I'm like, all right, great. So now let's talk about how to get you the $250,000 for your house. So now I start and I work on this. So again, we talked about on the comps that we want to use, that I figure is the best comp to use, and they agree with, is at $250,000. So then we have to start deducting all the different things that I have to take off for, to get them to, for me to make it make sense to buy it. So we just discussed that in the repairs, it's $57,500 that we both agreed to already. And then I tell them, look, full price is $250,000. Like if I take the house and pay you $250,000, I'm gonna make nothing on it. So like, I need to make something. Don't you think I should make something? Like do all this work for nothing? And they're like, no, for sure you should make something. I'm like, well, I ask them, well, what do you think is fair for me to make? And they're like, well, I have no idea. What do you usually make? And I'm like, well, I'm not gonna tell you what I need to make on this deal. Like honestly, I'm trying to help you out, and I want to get you as much as you can. But in general, like home builders make somewhere between 10 and 20% on any project they work on. And I'm not saying I have to make that much, but what I'm saying is that's what a normal person makes, but I definitely want to do the best I can for you and help you out, because that's what I'm here for. So they're like, well, can you do it for 10%? I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I'm going to do this for you for 10%. Usually I make at least 15, but I'll do it for you for 10. So if I'm selling it for $25,000, my 10% fee or commission I'm going to make is $25,000. So now we're already down another $25,000. And then I say, look, that's awesome. Whatever, I'm going to make my $25,000. But there's other costs that's going to be involved. we're going to have realtor fees, right? Realtor fees are 6%. I'm going to say, well, what's 6% of 250,000? They're going to use their calculator, they're going to get back to me, they're going to us 15,000. Okay, all right, well, that's another 15,000 I'm going to write down. Then I'm going to say, well, there's closing costs. When we have, first of all, I have to buy your house, then I'm going to have to fix it up, and then I'm going to sell it again. I'm actually going to have 2 closing costs. Usually closing costs are around 2%, but, you know, I don't want to kill you, there's going to be 2. Let's just, you know, we'll do 2% for both closing costs. And then, you know, we're going to be like, all right, what's 2%? 2% is $5,000. All right, cool. Well, there's another $5,000. All right? And I just go through all these different things. Holding costs. Like for the next 3, 4, or 5 months, however long it takes me to rehab it and sell it, I'm going to have to pay taxes, insurance, utilities. That's going to be another, you know, whatever you want. Put $1,000. Seller concessions. Well, what do you mean seller concessions? Well, anytime I sell a house to a retail end buyer, they're going to want some sort of something when they buy the house. Like they're going to want a home warranty. They're going to want me to, you know, do some minor repairs. Even though everything is going to be done, they're always going to have a home inspector and they're going to come up with some stuff that needs to be done. You know, that's usually going to be another 2%, but let's just do your 1%. You know, so we're at 2,500, that's 1%. Seller negotiation. Well, what's that? Well, let's say the house is worth $250,000. Is the seller going to pay full price right away for sure? Usually they want to negotiate some. So I say if I list it for $250 and try to sell it for $250, they're going to try to get me down a couple percent. So I'm going to lose another 2%. What's 2%? 2%, $5,000. So now I'm going to deduct another $5,000. And I'm making sure that they agree with all this stuff. If there's something I'm going through that they don't agree with, we're going to talk through it until they agree with it. There's a million different ways to get them to agree with it, but like every once in a while, if they don't agree with something, I'll be like, look, this should be $5,000. They're like, no, this should be $2,000. I'll throw them a bone and give them their price, you know, on some of the stuff every so often, and you know, show them that I'm trying to work with them. Interest costs. So most people that buy a home to fix and flip have to borrow money from someone, and it costs them whatever percent they have to pay. Usually, what I see is most people are paying at least 1% a month. So if this house costs me, you know, 4 months to fix and sell, it's 4 months worth of interest I have to pay. So that's another 4% on this house, which is another $10,000 or whatever it is. So, you know, I'll add that on here as well. And then at the end, I'm like, all right, let's see, if I was to get you full price for this house, based on the numbers that you agreed to and told me that what it would cost, because I go through and I explain it to them very well. So there's not really much they could really say that doesn't make sense. It makes so much sense because most people understand this stuff. And if they don't, I explain it until they do understand it. So we add up all these numbers, and we're at 57 plus 25 plus 15 plus 5 plus 1 plus 25 plus 5 plus 10. And we're at 20, 70, 90. So anyhow, whatever this comes up to, let's just assume this comes up to 90,000. It's a little bit off, but let's just say this came up to 90,000. At this point, I know that I'm going to be able to buy this house for them for $250 minus 90, and I'm at 160. And at the end of the discussion, if I know ahead of time before I came in that I know I'm okay with paying 160 for this house, then I know that they're going to agree with me on this because we just went through everything, and they just told me the price of 160. I might have paid 175 or 180 for this house because I knew ahead of time I can get so much more for it. But if I would have just came in and said, look, I'm going to give you 180,000 for this house, and actually gave them the price, they would have been like, oh man, you're ripping me off. You know, the house next door sold for 250, as opposed to going through all this with them. And at the end of the day, now they're going to sell it for 160, and they're happy to sell it for 160 because it makes sense. And I didn't even tell them I was going to pay them 160. I told them, look, I'm going to give you full price. I'm going to get you full price for this house, minus whatever my costs are going to be, and or your costs are going to be. So again, that's basically how I would negotiate. Now, if I was to really add these numbers up, let's just not add up the real numbers here, just to give you an idea. So 82.5, 97.5, 100, 106, 160. This is 121. So what I would actually be paying for this house is $129,000. Now, I might have, again, decided ahead of time that I was going to pay, I would have paid up to 160 or 150 or whatever, but I'm now at 129. Now, because I decided ahead of time I would have paid up to 150,000 for this house, I know that I have some room in case, you know, they still won't go for the 129. Although they should, because they agreed with everything. They're like, well, can you like lower your commission? Because like I really want to get more. I'll be like, you know what? I'll lower it 5,000 or 10,000, whatever you have to do, and then just add that money back to it. So if you deduct, you know, 5,000 off your commission or 10,000, you know, you're at paying 134 or maybe even 139. But you know, ahead of time you would have been happy paying 150, and you might have gone in there offering them 150 or 140, and they would have been like, you're crazy, you're ripping me off. But now since I went through all this, I get them to give me the price I want or even less because I explained it very thoroughly and they trust me, and I'm giving them real numbers. Everything here is real numbers. I just am able to get this stuff a little bit cheaper, and even this stuff I'm able to get a little bit cheaper. So I save money, they save money. They don't have to have the hassle of going through listing it and all these other things. So I hope that is something that will help you and you might can use in the future. I will make some more videos. This is the video that a lot of people ask me to make about different ways to negotiate. I have other ways. This is like a really solid way without giving a price and getting the price that you want. So I'll see you on the next video. Thanks.